Hey there, you're listening to Sport Coach Education, the podcast that explores coach training in all its various forms. I'm your host, Liz Byam. Let's get started. Welcome to the Sport Coach Education Podcast, and thank you for joining me today. By one of my former teammates from the Rutgers women's crew team. Sharon, why don't you introduce yourself, give us your athlete and coaching journey to get us started.
All right. Well, hi. Well, as Liz said, my name is Sharon Kriz, and Liz and I go way back to college. But before college, and Liz, I think this is where you and I actually have a lot of similarities in our background. I was a swimmer in high school, or before high school and through high school, and really didn't know much about rowing. But first couple days on campus at Rutgers, someone came up, said you should try this. I'm like, yeah, should try a lot of things. But lo and behold, someone down the hall from me knocked on the door one evening. I was like, I'm going to this meeting about the crew team. Do you want to come? I'm like, yeah, sure. I was thinking about it, but I probably wasn't going to go by myself. But since you're going, I'll go with you. So yeah, long story short, liked it, started going to practice. I think she quit like 2 days later. I'm like, let me keep going here. This is intriguing. I have no idea if I'm good at it or not. And I don't know if you remember that first fall season. Practices was just whatever time you can get down there because everyone had different schedules. So you were seeing new people all the time and had no clue what I was doing. It was intriguing. I'm like, I'll just keep doing this. No idea if I was any good at it. And I got invited to the winter training trip that winter. And that was my first. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm good enough to make I don't know how many they took, probably like 20, 24. And then I remember being on the bus. Do you remember the 24-hour bus ride down there?
Yeah.
And I remember meeting people for the first time I'd never seen before. And now second semester, we had practice more organized because we could arrange our schedules. I started to see, I'm pretty strong at this. we were all terrible. We were novices. But it was athletic, so again, long story short, I kind of, obviously kept going with it. Our awesome coach, Max Borgard, who I still think is like one of the best coaches I ever had, in terms of just motivating us and inspiring us. And he started talking to me. We'd be on the erg and he'd say, you should try to pull these numbers. And I'd be like, whatever, I guess I'll try it. I had no idea what I was doing, no idea if it was fast, no idea anything. He talked to me about back then you used to submit your scores for for national team type. And next thing I know, I got invited to this pre-league camp. Now I'm like in this room full of all these giant women. I was 5'9", 160. Like I was pretty decently sized for Rutgers crew, but there I was like, wow, I am small. I'm a small athlete. And I remember Max had kind of said, just put your head down and grind. And that's kind of what I did. And, when I lifted my head up, a couple weeks later, I made the team. I was like, wow. So we went to, it was called Nations Cup at that time. It was really the under 23 World Championships is what they call it now. Went there. We were in the straight four. I had no clue what a straight four was. I had no clue that there were boats that didn't have coxswains. There was so much that I was just learning at the time, but I did that again. So I did that for 2 years after, that was kind of my summer after junior year and after senior year. And then I kind of thought I was done. So I had, like you, I had majored in exercise science and was kind of exploring what I wanted to do. I was thinking about grad school. I really liked kinesiology and the study of movement. I mean, my original thought going into college had been med school. That kind of went out the door with organic chemistry. But, I still was looking to do something in the sports medical field. Went to work after college. I think I had an internship in corporate fitness. So they just offered me a job. I'm like, all right. So I took the job. I think you'd had a similar, I think again, we did it. We had a lot of parallel things that we were doing. And, I did that for a little bit. Wasn't rowing, but was running. I ran a marathon. I think you ran that with us. We ran a marathon. We did a half Ironman. So we were staying in shape and everything. I was like, maybe I should look at coaching. So I remember talking to Max and he set me up with an interview for University of Tennessee at the time that was starting their women's varsity program. And biggest mistake of that program, they didn't hire me, but that's okay. But I just kind of kept exploring around and I ended up moving up to Connecticut and coaching for a club that was in the process of building a boathouse and kind of definitely moving up into being a little bit more of a professionally run club. And that was Saugatuck Rowing Club, which if anyone in rowing world and juniors knows very much about. The owner was Howard Winklevoss, who his sons are Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, who were going to Harvard, obviously, but social network, there's a lot of history there. They've actually just made a huge donation to U.S. rowing. So big names in rowing. So I spent a lot of time there. And while I was there, the founder of that club was James Mangan. He's an Irishman, and he kind of started working out together. Again, I was new to coaching, so I was trying to learn as much as I could about coaching. I had a great foundation of just competitive rowing myself. Gosh, we used to sit and drink beers, and he would just, ask me questions about the coaches and what we did and what I thought about this and how this worked and that worked and how it tied back to my exercise science degree and things that I had learned in school, which is so cool. That was just our normal day-to-day conversations. So and then we started working out. Oh, he said to me one day over beers, why don't you write a training program and we'll do it? I was like, great. So I wrote a training program and we started doing it. And next thing I know, it's like winter and he's like, oh, I think I'm going to enter you a Crash Bees. I'm like, no. I mean, we're training. I always loved training. So I enjoyed training, had no problem doing that, getting up in the morning, in the evening, whatever. It was fun. But I really didn't think I was interested in competing against.
Isn't training only training if you're training for something?
No,
Otherwise,
I mean, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. But I mean, I was just training to be in shape, training to stay connected to the sport. I was also training to kind of experiment. How did this training program work? So, I mean, for me, I was more of a learning, kind of testing it on myself before I give it to you guys. And I was still new out of competitive rowing myself, and I was strong. I was faster than all. I mean, I could stand in front of all these boys and be like, I'm faster than you.
You were always a lot faster than me.
But anyway, and then he sent me to Crash Bees. He went up with me, and I want to say I pulled like a 709, which my best score in college was 704. So I was like, I'm not that far off of college. And I was not training as hard as we did in college. So I'm like, maybe I'm training smarter. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this stuff. So it was cool. So then that spring he started, and now mind you, this was all sweep rowing, that we did in college. A sweep with, one oar versus sculling with two oars. So I was doing a lot of coaching of sculling. Like, I think we were fortunate. Max put us in some sculling boats. I remember he had those quads that we used to do a little bit with. I mean, never really gave us much coaching in it, but we did have a little bit of experience in it. I would never have called myself a sculler or anything like that. I knew the basics and can coach the basics to a novice. So he started putting me out in the single, and I was just like, great, this is a great opportunity for me to continue learning what I'm looking to do with my career. I'm looking to be a coach. I need to know these skills, and here I can learn them. But I was like, this is great. By then, I was like, I want to coach. So this is what I want to do. I didn't know if I wanted to stay with junior rowing or move on to collegiate rowing or something like that. But the more I can learn, the better. So I was going out there every morning and I was learning. And again, to me, I was like, oh, twofold. I'm staying in shape, staying connected to the sport. All the people I'm coaching now are seeing me out here. You start to, hey, she's the real deal. I was just having fun. I mean,
sorry to interrupt, but I would imagine that would go even further with the male athletes.
You know what? Yes, and that gets a little bit further in my career when I wasn't coaching that many boys, coaching mostly girls at that time. When I started coaching boys, that's when I used to be like, well, this is what I pulled, so come back to me when you can pull a little faster. So yes, it really did, resonate with the boys. But anyway, again, I'm making this to a long story. I'm sorry. So I was flailing around this single. I was not very good, as anybody who first gets in a single is very good. There's a huge learning curve. No matter how strong you are on land or any other boat, the single is where you really see that skill comes into play far more than anything else, I think. So anyway, but I was out there every day. Practice makes better. So I was getting better. Next thing I know, James is like, oh, I entered you in it's called the NSR, National Selection Regatta. I was like, what? You're smoking something over there, because I have no business going and doing that. I'm doing this to learn how to be a better coach, and I'm just enjoying myself. I really didn't aspire to anything. And so we went down and I finished in the middle of the pack, and I was like, I'm like, wow. I'm not very serious about what I'm doing. And I'm in the middle of the pack, which means I'm beating people that are here that are taking it a lot more serious than I am. So it kind of just grew. I mean, in my head, I was still just learning how to be a better coach, and I was learning more to become an expert in what I'm looking to teach others. So, and I just kept going, and next thing I know, I was doing really well, and we were going to other NSRs, and I was getting invited down to Princeton. And by 2004, I was in a group that Tom Tahart was the national team coach. He asked a group of us to stay to do pieces against the Olympic 8. So we did that. We went to Canadian Henley. And he invited us all to stay down in 2005. So next thing I know, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to put a pause on my coaching career, and moved down here again. Moved down there and started training. By now, I was pretty darn good in the single, which was to my benefit because I'm a smaller athlete. I'm running with these 6 foot tall girls. I was strong for my size, but I was not strong compared to these bigger girls. But I'd learned to row to singles, and I was a couple years older than some of these recent graduates. So I think I had learned to be a little bit smarter in my training. I attribute a lot of that to James, and some of the conversations where we would just talk through things, and I'd be able to be like, well, this is how I'm feeling. He'd be like, well, I want to try this, and just learned so much. Anyway, so I made the 8 for the 2005 World Championships. Kind of hurt my back after that, and was like, okay, you know what? I'm about to turn 30 years old, and I've been doing this for a while. Let me just go back and focus on coaching. But then, the job opened up to be the director of the junior program there. So I took that, and that's when I kind of started coaching boys more, because that was, the coach that actually was James that had left. He had been coaching the boys. He ran the whole program, but had specifically coached the boys. So I started coaching boys, I coached a few boys here and there, but never the full team. So that's when I was able to kind of stand up and be like, okay, well, I pulled a 6 to 55. So why don't you work on breaking that 7-minute mark, and then we'll start talking. But it kind of just went from there. All I knew was competitive rowing. Like, I didn't know really much about recreational rowing. It wasn't that I was looking to be cutthroat, competitive, but just training to be the best that I could be. Is what I knew of coaching, and it's how I approached everybody that I coached. I coached adults. I coached, adults up into their 70s and 80s. I coached the kids. I coached the middle school kids. I mean, I coached a little bit of everybody. And everything was just, how can I help this person just be the best that they can be? And hell, I mean, again, just like me, I think if you're consistent with it, you stick with it, you can get pretty darn good. I did a lot of lessons. I did coach the juniors. The junior program grew. Junior rowing was growing in the United States. I've seen a huge boom in junior rowing over the last 25 years. And I went from when we were in college, like, I had no idea. I think we had a couple girls on the team that did a little bit of rowing in high school, but the vast majority of us had never rowed in high school.
Right.
So,
and they never ended up being the best rowers on the team.
Exactly. So it's still a sport that so many sports you need to start at a young age. Rowing is still something that someone can come in at a late age and get some relatively quick success that can jumpstart their career.
Coach, let's just be clear. We're not talking about people coming in off the couch. But,
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I mean,
we had a lot of volleyball players. The guys had a lot of basketball players. We're talking about like fit people.
Yep.
Can learn the rowing part of it.
Exactly. Anyway, but so I coached there, grew the junior program. I coached there until 2018. So a long time. Again, in that time, I think I certainly explored, maybe I should be moving on to being a collegiate rowing coach. I quickly kind of realized that, it's like apples and oranges, it's completely different environments. And I really, really started to like it's just young athletic development side of things. I love winning races. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love going out there and winning races. But I started to realize that wasn't the goal. So the goal was to help these athletes develop the best that they can. And if you do that, and you kind of do all the little things really well, your chances of winning are pretty darn good. So it's funny, yeah. You put the work in, you get the results. But I really, I really like the junior side of it, the youth side of it. Collegiate rowing is all cutthroat, competition. I just had, I had interviewed for a couple of jobs, and I was just like, you know what, I think I really like this junior rowing. Like I saw it growing quite a bit. Teams were growing. They were becoming just as competitive as a lot of collegiate programs, and I think this is where I'd like to be. I was coaching, but I was also running the program. Like I was the director of junior rowing. So I was doing a lot of other things as well. And if you had asked me to choose, what do I prefer to do? I prefer to coach. But doing all these other things helped me build a program that was really a lot of fun to coach. I started to realize that there was so much more behind these programs that people don't realize. That the administration of a program, working with the parents, so boosters, various different things. So I started to get more involved with that stuff, learn a little bit more. I started hiring coaches. I definitely hired some coaches. Learning what worked, what didn't work. I was fortunate to be in a very affluent area, so I could make coaching a full-time job, which is not necessarily super easy to do. Yeah. Still not super easy to do. But I was able to do that. In 2018, I moved over to Maritime Rowing Club, which is the next kind of river over. And they were in the process of building a boathouse, putting in new docks. I had done a lot of that at Saugatuck. So did work there for 2018 to 2014. And currently now down in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm the director of rowing at the Williamsburg Boat Club, and I'm loving it. I'm just learning all the time. And even the coaching, I've been coaching a long time. I'd call myself an expert, but I'm learning. I'm learning how a different demographic, a different group of kids, different goals, different approach to things. Learning every day how I can do things better, and how to take this club now that is a great community program. We're doing fundraising. There's a plan to build a rowing center and to expand and do stuff. The water we have down here, Liz, oh my gosh. Like I'm coming from up in Connecticut, was like the I-95 of like rivers where there's just so many boats and so much boat traffic. And I'm down here where I got water everywhere and like so little boat traffic. It's amazing. Awesome. So there's a lot of potential, and it's kind of my ship to steer a little bit, which is really fun. It's a long story.
I always enjoy being in charge, so I can do things my way.
Yes. No, I enjoy being in charge. I do enjoy having a team of people around me. I have a great team here working on, again, building the professionalism, just working on expanding the program. So I've got more money to hire more people and do things. But it's a challenge, and it's fun.
No, it sounds amazing. And it's funny, I had scribbled down, do you ever regret not going into collegiate coaching before you brought it up? But it is funny how it sounds like, and I would feel this way, that there was like kind of that voice, or society's voice, telling you you're not a real coach unless you coach at the collegiate level. And, there are many, many kids out there who are lucky you didn't listen to that voice, and you stayed where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I still funny. Not too long ago, one of the kids here asked me what my real job was. I was like, "This is my real job."
It's not a full-time gig for a lot of people.
No, it's not, and I'm really thankful that the club down here did see that and was made it a full-time gig, because it was not necessarily before. But I think there's so much potential for what we can do, and investing in coaches is kind of the first step. And I think people underestimate, your kids at a young age. And I'm not even talking like young. I'm mostly high school, but how important a good coach at that stage is. And I'm not saying that all these part-time and volunteer coaches are. There's some great ones out there. But invest in a little bit, and we can actually do a lot of things.
No, I bring that up. One of my areas of focus is like ethics in coaching, and the whole idea of, is it really fair to not pay people anything in case of volunteer coaches, but even a non-living wage? Like that is at the forefront of a lot of conversations, but I never hear anybody talking about it when it comes to coaching.
Right.
internships interns these days without paying them.
Mhm.
But
Well, in my jobs in Connecticut, I would say 75% of them were full-time coaches. Now, again, I mean, I was very fortunate. Lived in an environment where these programs were all very expensive to be part of. But we were able to pay full-time coaches, pay them well. I mean, I have several coaches that coached under me that went on to collegiate coaching, and are doing very well. And again, if that's what you want to do, it's a great jumping pad to that. And in a way, I'm trying to kind of make it an appealing job that people want to do. First for you'll pay a decent wage to coaches, but make it see like, hey, this is a career path. This is not just something that you do in the in between while you're figuring out what you really want to do. Which is fine too. I mean, I've got a lot of
yeah,
coaches that this is you're doing this for a couple of years while you're either going to school or while you're doing something else or figuring things out, and that's fine too. I mean, I think it's so important for everybody to kind of take their time and really find what they want to do. I think when you and I were going through school is like you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job. And I think things have changed a little bit to where hey, take a little bit of time or and really find where your passions are. And I think that's great. And if I can help a young or athlete slash young coach find what their passions are and help them to that, that's great. Yeah.
because you're in the community setting, and you did mention lessons at one point. It's more of a maybe a philosophical question. What do you think the difference is between coaching versus teaching lessons? Because you're talking about the same sport.
I'm very careful. Like, I don't think, I mean, I think that when you talk about ethics, I think that there's a line. Like, I was never a fan of, like, if I'm the coach of let's just take, let's take Zoe, your daughter. Like, say your daughter she rode at Rutgers a little bit, didn't she? I think
Yeah.
so. Okay. So I have Zoe as on my team. Yeah. So I'm her head coach. I don't think it's ethically, or there's a gray area. Like, I wouldn't want to give her private lessons because then, I mean, it's all perspective. Like, I know that I am not the kind of coach that would then give her preferential treatment in making bow selection, but it could certainly be perceived like that. And when you are coaching a youth program, you are coaching the parents almost just as much as you are the kids. So it's really important to set a precedence and to stay consistent and really toe that line really well. So I was never a fan and I never really allowed it to happen, for the direct coach of a team to give private lessons to an athlete on their team. Now, if you really want Zoe to have some lessons and my boys coach can give her some lessons, like I'm not, personally, I think that if you are coming to practice every day and you're doing everything you're told, I don't know that you really need to spend a lot of money on private lessons.
No, as a parent, I'm Zoe's parent. I would be upset if I were already paying. You said it's a pricey program. If I was paying for an expensive program and I felt it necessary to then pay more money on top of that for private lessons, that
Right.
would not make me happy.
Right, and that never sat very well with me. Now, listen, I mean, if someone wants to pay it and now here's the administrator side of me saying like, well, here's a great way for one of my coaches that I can't necessarily pay as much I want to pay them, so they can make some extra money. This person's willing to pay it. Again, it's kind of, there's pros and cons there. Now, if that parent, if you came to me, I'm the head coach of the program, and you come to me and say, hey, my daughter's really liking the rowing. Do you think she needs private lessons? My answer would say no. Again, I think she needs to come to practice every day. Hopefully she is. As part of our practice, we are encouraging, call it homework, some extra work. Go for an extra run, sit on the erg for a little bit, do some of that extra low cardio that you don't need a lot of coaching for that. It's just time.
No,
But
and
does she
honestly,
need
if you're not self-motivated enough, you're never gonna go anywhere anyway. So,
correct? Correct. No, but I do think at these younger ages, sometimes they don't necessarily know, and they need a little bit of a nudge. And I mean, and that's where the coach comes in, and I mean, it's my job to kind of try to inspire them. You'll be like, hey, you're doing really great. If you did just a little bit more, think about what more you can do. I'm in that right now where I've got some great athletes, and they're good. I'm like, hey, you could do just a little bit more and you could go from good to like the next step, and so back to the difference between coaching and private lessons. I think private lessons now, to me, when I do a private lesson, I'm not coaching you for fitness or for performance. I'm coaching you for technique. So sure means, I mean, again, let's go back to the single. He's always been rowing an 8 all along. She wants to row a single. Well, there's a learning curve there, and there's technique, and that's where some lessons might help you with that technique. So I'm not giving you the workout plan. Like, coaching is a full plan. It's cardio, it's race pace pieces, it's strength training, it's stretching, it's the mental side of things. Hell, I mean, we'll talk about nutrition sometimes. It's the full package, where I think private lessons is kind of identifying one small area that you need to really focus on. I've sent people to nutritionists, be like, hey, you want to be a lightweight rower. Lightweight rowing doesn't exist in junior rowing anymore, so, which I'm not sad about, but back in the day, used to be like, maybe you need some special help with this. You go to the nutritionist. Hurt your shoulder, you need some special help. You go to the physical therapist. You're really struggling with your technique, and on the team, we're all working on our catches, and everyone's getting it, and we're coaching that, we're doing drills, but someone's really not getting it, and it's starting to hold them back. Then I could make a case where maybe having a couple private lessons with another coach that's not your direct coach could help you.
Do you ever feel responsible as their coach to provide that one-on-one or get them those skills they need?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I feel like, again, I'm probably going to think about this and have like totally different views here. But if I said, hey, Liz, Zoe's really not figuring this out, get her some private lessons, I'm basically admitting that I failed. So like, I'm never going to
I
say that,
don't
actually.
disagree at all, but that is not the way a lot of, it probably is because coaches don't make a living wage. There's a money grab for
Yeah.
extra.
Yeah. It's just like back kind of when I was training with the national team, a lot of my little side jobs were around the gym. I mean, I taught spin lessons, I taught step classes.
We
I
really
did
are the same person,
we are.
Sharon.
I know, Liz, I know.
Look, I never had my national team debut, but
It's still coming.
boy,
Keep working out there, Liz.
I do
But
have an
no,
Oregon basement, so you never know.
I never really took off on personal training. There was one gym that I worked at, and it's funny, like, you didn't get paid to work the floor. I mean, you were supposed to work the floor to get clients and give personal training lessons. So I'd go, and I got to work out. I loved sitting in the gym. I was a gym rat. So yeah, I'd go to practice, then go sit in the gym and do a little extra workouts and stuff like that. And I was supposed to be like selling myself as a trainer to people, which that never really sat well with me. Well, I did get one client, one woman wanted some like a 5-pack of training sessions. So I did that. And I remember the woman who was supervising me, she goes, okay, well, in like the 5th training session, change it up a little bit so that she needs to buy another 5 package. And to me, and this was the coach in me, I'm trying to teach her how to do things so she could do it on her own.
Yeah,
Like, I
be
don't want to teach her
self-sufficient.
dependency. It's teaching, and that's where I was like, okay, yeah, personal training is not what I'm ever gonna do,
It's
because
all sales, yeah.
yeah, it's all
Yeah.
about sales. That's where I think coaching, and I guess you can say private lessons can be a little bit like that. They're like, you get someone dependent on you. Even when I gave private lessons, like, I don't know,
You're not
I
doing you
did
weren't doing it right, Sharon, if you were making people self-sufficient.
trying to teach people to be more independent, not depend on me. I did have one gentleman that I coached. I loved coaching him. The lesson was like an hour and a half. It gave time to get the boat on the water, off the water. But after about 40 minutes, he'd be like, okay, you leave me. I have things to work on. So you don't need to watch me. And I was like, God, I love you. That's fantastic.
Why isn't everybody like this?
But he
Meanwhile, I'd
appreciated,
have
he
personal
understood
training
that there
clients who were
were,
I would have personal training clients who would want me to stand next to the treadmill while they ran for 10 minutes to warm up.
right.
I'm like, "You can't do this before we start?" Like,
Well, I mean, listen, and if that's what that person needs to do the work, and they're willing to pay for that, I mean, you're a paid friend. But again, I don't know. I was always trying to inspire people to be able to do stuff on their own, and like, you don't need me watching you all the time. Again, my goal was to see people doing stuff on their own and not just the only time you row is when I'm here with you. Like that, to me, that wasn't the goal. I coached a lot of great people. There was a great community of masters. And it's funny, they call them masters, adult rowing. They're not really masters of anything, but they're adults. No insult meant there, but adult rowing, a fantastic group of adults up there that I coached. Still in communication with a lot of them. Actually, so great group of people that I got to coach as well, but then they really supported me.
Some. So you did talk about your mentor. You never used that word, but it sounds like James is definitely a mentor,
Yes,
and he
absolutely.
provided a lot of, like, on the job training for you. You also didn't say, but it sounds like he was intentional in setting you up with, "Hey, Sharon, why don't you make us a lesson plan? Like, what should we, like, a training plan?" And by the way, I remember your dad had a heart attack when we were in college,
Yes,
and you, for one of our class assignments, you made a plan,
a
his, like,
rehab kind of
recovery.
plan.
What?
Yeah, I like a rehab plan, like a
Yes, yes,
cardiac rehab.
rehab
Yeah,
plan. I
yeah.
totally remember that because
My
it
dad,
was
my
an
dad would
actual case.
well, then my dad, I mean, he was a policeman on campus, and he usually worked nights. And I remember a couple of times he'd call, and somehow he got himself into one of the gyms and would get on the erg and be like, "Sharon, like I was on the erg today." I'm like, "Oh, that's great, Dad." That he's like, "Well, what do you pull for a 6K?" I'm like, "Don't worry, what I pull for a 6K, Dad." I'm like, "It's just great that you're on there doing it."
Probably the worst technique ever, like you always see at the gym, but I was also trying not to interrupt you earlier. When we were in college, that was sadly the kind of the start of the internet. So when you said, like, you didn't understand what was necessary for the national team, because we couldn't easily look that information up. I mean, there was internet, but there was not a whole lot on there. You also couldn't go to YouTube to figure out how to coach, which I hear all the time now, because we just didn't have those resources. So other than your mentor, what contributed to, because I know you had the same undergrad experience I did in exercise science, which obviously helps a lot more than, I don't know, a business major. Although, like, a business major, a psychology major, an education major, all of those would have helped you in your eventual career. So I was trying to think of one that totally wouldn't help you, but I know Rutgers did not offer even a coaching minor. So where did you learn to coach?
From my coaches. I mean, that's where I think that I do have a minor in psychology. I mean, I'm fortunate in my career, Liz. I mean, even going back to Max. I mean, Max was a phenomenal coach for us. I then went to the national team where I had some good coaches, I had some not great coaches, but I would venture to say I had more good coaches than not. And even the ones that weren't necessarily great. It's not that they were bad coaches. I had a vast array of coaching styles that I was exposed to. And when you go to these pre-league camps, it was like I think it was like 6 weeks. Like it was a good chunk of time, and there were a lot of people cycling through there as like either guest coaches or just people watching. And I remember there was Amy Fuller, who was a kind of famous national team Olympian who, I mean, she used to talk to us. I remember some of this advice. I mean, she'd give us the advice, and I still use these words like when I'm giving advice to my kids about how, like, every race, every practice, like, think of 3 things you did well and 3 things you want to do better. Even if it's the best race possible, the best practice, there's something you can do better. She used to talk about the highs and lows and how, like, just like it's like a bouncing ball, and he goes, your goal was to really kind of level it out. Like, you don't want the highs to be too high, you don't want the lows to be too low. You want to kind of just stay in that middle ground where a bad day's it's an off day, but it's not terrible. You're kind of always towing this line, and always in striking distance of a great day. I was exposed to stuff like that. I mean, nowadays, and yeah, you can find stuff on the internet and probably find a lot of stuff. So back then, you're right. Like we didn't have this stuff at our fingertips. I was fortunate enough to be put in positions where I was exposed to a lot of this. Yeah. And then I had again James Mangan, a phenomenal coach. He's still one of my best friends. I mean, I talk to him pretty regularly, even now. I mean, we talk about our programs now. He's coaching a school up in Greenwich, and he's like, "Oh, Sharon, I've got this girl pulling this." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, I've got this girl pulling this."
Cute. I love it.
So, I mean, you just bounce ideas and talk about things. And I've had Tom Tahart was the national team coach the majority of my time, who is just one of those silent coaches that just like you hang on every word he says and he doesn't say much, but when he says something, you're like right there listening. He's actually a Rutgers guy. So I think that's where, I mean, I think everybody and everything you do is like take all, and this is where as you get older, have more of these experiences. So I have more to draw on and be like, hey, like um, I like what this coach did. I didn't like what that coach did. I like what this coach did. And I put it together and make my own style. And I'm pretty sure I listened to your first podcast with Stephanie, the swim coach. And I think she was saying something about young coaches and how people would complain about young coaches. I'm like, well, that young coach is doing the best that they can for the 21 or 22-year-old that they are. Like they don't have the experiences that, you know, I mean, we're old, Liz. I
You'll
don't even like
always
to
be
think
a year
about it.
older than
But, like, I mean, I just have that many more years of experience to draw off of. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing the right thing, but I'm trying. So I think that's where I say I was fortunate. I think obviously I also paid attention. I listened. I recently, my mom dropped off a bunch of stuff that she's been storing in the house, like going through and like one of the things when I went to my first pre-league camp, Max had advised me, and I'm not a big journal writer or anything like that. He's like, keep a journal, just the workouts and stuff that you're doing. So I did that, and I can look back and I do that once in a while, and I found some more stuff that my mom had when she dropped everything off of just was writing down some of the workouts I was doing. I was writing down some of the little bits of advice that different side coaches were giving me. Some feelings that I had of like, why the hell is this boat not going faster? So I look back at that. I'm like, wow, that was great. I didn't do that on my own. I mean, I did that because Max kind of insinuated that it would be a good idea, and it was a great idea. And unfortunately, I kept that up through a lot of my years of training. 8 years, a couple years in the middle there where I ran the marathon and triathlon. I wasn't really documenting what I was doing so much then, but anytime I was rowing, I was doing a pretty good job of writing stuff down. And I can look back and remind myself. I mean, it's funny things that you forget. And I read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
No, it sounds like a treasure trove. Like
Yeah.
that's awesome. I have pieces of paper where we had to write our mantras and put them on the index cards that I used to have taped to my mirror.
Hmm.
So it sounds like you had the wherewithal because I really want to say not everybody does to draw the good parts from all those different coaches and even use those quote unquote bad interactions as an example of what you would never want to do or
Well, I think again because I took a couple year break. We graduated college in '98, so I was on the what would be the U20, the under 23 team in '97, '98. I think it was the year 2000. We ran we did the Ironman, we did the half Ironman. Well, we did the marathon first, and then I kind of decided that I wanted to coach. So I think I had made the decision that coaching was going to be my career, and then I went back to training. So I think that probably helped me in there that I'd already kind
mm,
of, whether it's
time frame.
subconsciously or like I knew coaching was going to be what I wanted to do. So I think I probably subconsciously was paying maybe a little bit more attention because here I was now being coached by these phenomenal people and let me learn as much as I can.
No, that
Again,
makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of it that way, but
I
that
never did too, so we're having this conversation
yeah,
either.
no, it's see, and that's why we're doing
Yeah.
this. But yeah, no, it does help to have the right lens so you can frame things the best way possible. So that
Yeah.
it does, I mean, worked out perfectly because yeah, talk about like elite coaches, you definitely had them. I want to ask about um the US rowing coach certification program. Like it didn't exist back in my college days. So I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm assuming you do. And, um, what does it look like? Who is it for? Um, did you have to get certified? Do the college coaches get certified? Do the people you hire get certified? Give me the whole deal.
There's a lot in that question. US rowing, they do have coaching certification. It's funny, they had in my earlier career, they had their level 1, 2, 3. I remember calling up and being like, "Hey, I'm Sharon Kriz, done this," and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should go right to level 3." They've revamped it all now, but back then you pretty much just it was one of these tests, kind of like the Red Cross CPR course where if you got that wrong, why don't you go rethink this and take it again, like kind of like a no fail test. They did a couple classes, there was a book, and then you take this test and you're level 3. It was not very robust. They revamped it, I mean, I'm probably maybe 10 years ago now, to level 1, level 2, level 3, and I'll preface this with I think they're doing a great job. I've done the level 1 because they're in the process of adjusting it, tweaking it, finding the best path. I think US rowing has a large scope that they cover between learn to row, recreational rowing, and you've got CrossFit and a lot of gyms out in rowing. So there's that level of rowing all the way to national team. So there's a lot there, and I know a lot of people in US rowing, and obviously the races we go to. I'm on several of the councils, so again, they've got a big job, and they are, and just like coaches, they are constantly evaluating and trying to do things a little better. So they're doing a great job. The level 1 is designed to be kind of uh, you don't really know, like you can be a parent, if you're a volunteer coach, type stuff like that. They are in the process requiring pretty much that everyone has done their level 1. And if you want to go to a US rowing sanctioned regatta, you need to have that level 1. And it basically just means that you have done your CPR, your first aid, you have a boating license in some state, safe sport. There's background checks. You know, there's a lot of things that they are starting to take coaches more serious and expect you have these things, which, and I think is great. I mean, who's going to argue to make sure that the coach is CPR certified and safe sport? Okay, I mean, again, it's these videos you have to watch, but just the awareness of this stuff, I think, is phenomenal. I mean, sure, it's a pain every year. I got to go sit through these videos and everything, but I mean, if it prevents a couple kids from being treated wrongly, I think great. So that's kind of the level 1. Level 2 goes a little bit deeper. I haven't taken it. I probably should. I look back; it's probably one of those things I should have done during COVID when I had a little more time. Honestly, I feel like I would need to do it if I wanted to coach at the national team level, or if I wanted to go to, like in 2015, I took a pair to Junior Worlds. So this was not in place back then, but if I had a pair to go to Junior Worlds, I would need to take the level 2.
It's a big jump from level 1 to level 2.
It is. It is. Oh, I think there's probably other sports that have far more levels in there. And, you know, maybe it's something that US rowing goes to. I think there's been a lot of pushback from some of your older coaches that are like, who are you telling me I need to do this? Again, I don't need it for my job, but, you know, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have. I have a coach on my coaching staff who did not row in college. You know, she actually rowed here at Williamsburg for as a high school student. So I know she took the level 2. I think that was probably very valuable for her because she doesn't have the rowing experience that I have that I can draw back on. So I think it's great for young coaches that are aspiring to coach. It's a way of learning, getting exposed to some of the stuff that I was exposed to naturally. And then there's level 3 that is where you get much more almost into the exercise science. I think you get into the physiology and writing of training programs and more in depth there. I think US rowing has done a good job. I mean, there's a number of hours that online course that I think you take. I think there's some mentorship hours, like where you need to ride along with another certified coach. And I know there's been a little pushback. It's like you're trying to coach, how do you find hours to go sit in the launch with another coach? So it's tough. But I think they're on the right path to having a little bit more of a formal education process to coaching rowing. I know some of the stuff that sounds like that you're doing with your studies, I think is great. I mean, I think there's a lot. I think that everyone thinks that, oh, being a coach is easy, you know, or oh, it's fun, or it's you know, it's a side gig and it is fun, but there's it's not just fun, haha. Like it's fun when you can make a plan and you execute that plan and you see the athletes that you're working with follow that plan and you see them be inspired to do more and then you see them do well, like that's fun. That's, I mean, I try to tell my kids all the time. I'm like, it's fun to go fast. It's not fun every single day along the way, but you understand that the hard times are what are helping you get better and keeping you going and getting you to the place where you go fast, and then that's really darn fun. So yeah, so I mean, but that's the coaching certifications. They've evolved. I imagine that they'll continue to evolve a little bit, but they're going in the right direction. And I think any young coach, I can see again, older coaches like me, I think a lot of us are in positions where we don't necessarily need those certifications. And I mean, if I was 10, 15 years ago in my career, I think you absolutely should be working at these certifications.
And the collegiate coaches don't they're not required to have any certification?
You know what? I think it depends where you are. There's been a lot of kind of I don't even call it uneasiness. There's been a lot of up and down in U.S. rowing, and it has all revolved around insurance. So I think a lot of the collegiate programs, because they have their own insurance and other through the university stuff, a lot of them don't necessarily follow U.S. rowing guidelines rules. And again, I might be wrong with that. I mean,
Okay.
I long ago decided I wasn't gonna
Yeah, it just
be going into
comes up in
college.
my studies and some of my circles that
Mm.
a lot of the push is even in these coach education programs that are offered at universities, almost all of them are geared towards youth sports. And so then the question becomes, well, what about these, college students are not old. Like you're still talking about developing humans. So and just because you're 18 doesn't mean that somebody can't abuse you, but there is no safe sport requirement for working with college rowers. So,
Is there
um,
anything though I would think that something like that might fall under the athletic department? I mean, I think when you look at youth sports, I think that's where like a lot of and then here's where like I'm a youth sport, like we're a club sport. Like we're not any one school. Like I draw kids from all different schools, and so there's even a difference between scholastic and interscholastic. So there's a lot of scholastic programs that are like, well, my school athletic department requires that we do this, 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 and this. Why do I also have to do it for US rowing? So I think for some of this, you would think that a school, a high school, maybe even a middle school, and a university or college has an athletic department. And yeah, your ADs have all sorts of training and so forth. And I think that is, supposed to kind of filter down to setting the tone and overseeing all of your coaches. When you look at some of these club sports, and this is where I mean, I'm coming from pretty professionally run youth
yeah,
programs, but I didn't have an HR department. I didn't have an athletic director telling me what to do. And that's where I became all of that myself. Like I've sat down with coaches and been like, the HR, like, we probably shouldn't say that in this environment. We need to do things certain ways. So without the formal training, I've kind of I fill those roles. So that's where I do think for some of your youth and your club sports, having some sort of governing board to help with that stuff, there's probably a little bit more of a need for it. My guess.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
And like, there is no easy answer, which is part of the reason why I talk to so many people about it to get different ideas. But there are a lot of people in that collegiate space. Actually, the people in the collegiate space aren't the ones that really push for the certifications, but it's the ones looking at the collegiate space that think it's an issue. I have just a couple questions about leadership and then we'll wrap it up if that's okay. Um, when did you first realize you were in a leadership role in coaching, not just a coaching role? And what happened that made that visible to you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I think I realized it pretty early on. I was kind of pushed into being a head coach. Like I was never really an assistant coach. Would be an assistant in terms of, let's just take again kind of my first coaching job was at Saugatuck. James was kind of he was the rowing director of everything. So like I worked under him. So I mean, you could say I was an assistant coach to him, but he made me the head girls coach. So I think right there, like I was like, oh shoot, like I'm in charge of what these girls do. Let me figure this stuff out. And again, in hindsight, looking back, maybe that's why I really, when he brought up, let's write a training program. I want to do this. And I was like, well, I better pretty quickly figure this stuff out and learn this stuff because I've got a team that is kind of depending on me to guide them. So that's not something that I consciously said at that time, but as we talk here, I kind of think that's probably maybe what I was thinking. But no, I mean, I realized right away. I had a girl that first. You know what? I take it back. I was an assistant coach for the first fall season. And then the head coach left, and I became the head coach that spring. So I was
But
an
it's
assistant coach.
like, for people who don't relate to rowing, it is a lot different than being like, the assistant soccer coach where you're standing next to the soccer coach on the side of the field. And
No,
yeah,
yeah, you're in a different launch. You're out in the water.
you're in charge of different boats. You are not together with that leader necessarily.
Right.
I mean, you
Right.
could.
Well, that's or so again, I did realize early on that, yeah, like I go out and I need to make decisions regarding safety. I remember going out, I remember going out.
It's no
I was with my
training.
master's group and we went out. It was early morning. It was foggy. We went out like, oh, if we just go straight and we turn 180 degrees and come back, we'll be fine. Like, and like, and it wasn't until we go, we turn. I'm just like, well, now, like, how do you judge when you can't see anything? How do you know when you've gone 180 degrees? And it dawned on me, like, I'm responsible for the seat. I mean, everything was fine. We were never in danger, but it dawned on me that, hey, their safety is in my hands, and I need to make good decisions. I think, I mean, there's a handful of times, I mean, when you're outside dealing with weather, I mean, yeah, some storms have snuck up on me and I've been like, oh shoot, we should have been on our way home, or, maybe this was a bad call. I mean, and knock on wood, nothing has ever happened. I hear definitely there's stories of some bad decisions and stuff. And I mean, it's only a bad decision in hindsight, when you look back. I mean, at the time, I hope, I hope that every coach is making what they think is a good decision at the time. I mean, we
Yeah,
can all
not
look
let
back
me
and
purposely put my athletes at risk.
yeah. Like I don't think there's anyone purposely doing that, but you're still, you're responsible.
You you remember in college when Max took us out when the river was frozen? Do you remember that? I
I
wrote about it it was taking sport law, and we were, it's a big focus on risk management.
hmm
And it was like, describe a time where, and I was like, oh my God, that's like the first thing that came to mind. Shopping through the ice on
I
the
remember he
river.
went out in his launch ahead of time and like
Yeah.
with it, made some broke it up a little bit, and then we went out.
I'm pretty sure that was the same day. I was shivering so badly. He literally had to take the shirt off his back and give it to me because I was so cold.
hmm
Um, yeah, I gotta get him on the podcast. It's funny. I did talking about risk management made me remember a thought I had when you were talking about athletes in harm's way. But yeah, that's like the bare minimum of coach education. There's a million
Yeah.
and one things involved with being a coach, and risk management is, in my opinion, should just be one very small part of it.
Well, it's one. I mean, there's all your pieces of the pie, and it's one very important piece. I mean, we can't do any one thing without the other. But it's in this day and age, it's become more and more important. But you're right, and again, that's where I think coaches, especially of youth athletes, like you're a teacher, and you can go into teachers and advanced degrees and certifications that you need to do and keep current with, and there's not always that same standard for coaches. And I think there's an argument that, oh well, again, yeah, a lot of coaches, you're part-time, you're volunteers, how you have time to do everything, you're not paid that much, and that's those are all valid points. I don't think that any of that should supersede just being a good quality coach. And then that's also, I mean, again, I've been a professional youth coach my whole life. So, I mean, obviously I am going to advocate for why it does need to be treated a little bit more professional so that you are doing those things. And I mean, if I look at me right now, like I wouldn't necessarily say that across the board. I'm doing that. I'm working towards it. In the club program, it takes money, it takes time, it takes resources, and colleges maybe have a little more of those resources. I'm trying to have those resources and be those resources. And that's where I have learned in my 20 plus years now of coaching youth rowers that quite honestly, the actual coaching is, I don't want to say it's easy because it's not easy, but comes much more natural to me and is obviously where there is a lot more rewarding than sitting here and working on a budget or going through and making sure all my coaches have their certifications or that, okay, everyone's CPR certified. I mean, ticking all those boxes, but it does need to be done to in the professional environment that we want to have.
No, professionalization of coaching is there is actually a good bit of research on that. Um, Last leadership question. When you work with coaches, how intentional are you about developing them as leaders too? And what does that look like in practice?
I try to be very intentional. One of the things that, and actually goes back to James, said to me when I was a young, starting out a young coach, I'll paraphrase, but he was like, if he did everything for me, I was never going to learn. So putting me in a position where I can make decisions or I can maybe determine a workout plan of what we're doing, allowed me to develop and become a coach. So I mean, if someone's always holding my hand and spoon feeding me everything I should be doing, I never learn how to do anything by myself. It goes back to the coaching and personal training. I'm trying to teach you to be able to
Yeah.
do this on your own, not to always depend on me. So that's what I always aspire to. I aspire to see coaches to learn themselves. Now, I can't have a coach go rogue and go do their own program, like because we have a whole team, a whole program. Yes, we're boys. Yes, we're girls. Maybe we're novices, varsity. There's still kind of a general kind of plan. There's a general culture to the program, so I can't have somebody just go completely rogue. But I do like being able to say, "Hey, Liz, okay, I'm the head coach. Here is the workout plan. This is what I would like to be doing with the athletes I'm coaching. You may be coaching some athletes that are not quite ready to do these drills, do these workouts, but this is the type of drills and workouts that you are trying to teach them to be ready for. So when they move up to be coached by me, they're ready for this. So take it and cater it to the level of athlete that you are coaching." So if we're doing a pause drill, or we're doing a double pause, well, maybe your athletes only do a single pause, but you need, at least for you as the coach, you need to know where you are trying to get them to. So you need to know what I'm doing so that you can get them there. So I love when a coach can think on their own. Again, take this practice, make it your own. Now, again, if I told you to go do some steady state do drills, don't go doing race pieces. Work within the framework, but you can make it your own within the framework. And some coaches do that better than others. I think the people that are going to be successful at coaching are going to take that. I've never had, I love questions. I mean, I love it when coaches come in and be like, okay, well, we did this and this. I mean, I'll ask my coaches a lot of times, like, how did practice go? It went great. We did this, we did this, we did this. Like, I love that feedback and hearing about it. I'm never, once in a while, I might say, oh, well, that's great. Next time, try to do this, or here's how you can do that even better. I don't like, again, I try to stay positive. I like again, I'm coaching with coaches as much as I'm coaching athletes and trying to let them learn, teach them to swim, don't let them sink type of thing.
Wait, oh, that made me remember another question. Have you ever coached anything other than rowing?
Nah, I taught swim lessons in like high school, but yeah, no, I haven't. I think rowing has always been my main focus.
Do you think people have to have played the sport that they coach?
It's a good question. I'm going to say no, because I have worked with coach who was not necessarily a rower herself. I mean, she was now doing some rowing just in her later years, but she had a very strong coach education background and coached another sport at a very high level. So she understood um she understood coaching. Yes, it was a different sport, but she had enough of a foundation of just athleticism. I mean, I do think, I mean, we're coaching a specific sport, but there is just general athleticism, especially when you're talking about youth athletes, that there's a whole nother, I mean, we could talk for hours about the specialization
Yeah.
of your sport, and how young is too young to start to specialize. And that's something I've always griped with you because I mean, I'm in a sport where rowing is year-round training. I'm like, well, but it's a one-dimensional repetitive sport. All we do is row. I think that's not helping develop anything. So you have to think about the whole development. So I think as long as you have a good foundation in athletic development, you can learn to be a good enough. You can learn the the aspects of rowing that you need to coach. No, I don't know if you far you would take that coaching. Like I mean, you might be just a good general youth coach or novice JV coach. I think if you have somebody working with you that can then add that more expertise, in it. But no, I think you could. I don't think you need to be an actual rower. You do need to be an athlete, I think, and you do need to have a strong foundation in athletic development.
On the flip side, could you go coach another sport?
I think I could again because I think
If
I,
you said no, I was gonna tell you were wrong.
I don't know what sport I would want to go coach. I didn't think about that, but
Well, that's the thing.
you
It would
mentioned
have to be
mountain
one that
biking.
you were willing to take the time to learn. And that's the biggest part. Like if you
Right.
had the desire to learn the ins and outs of that specific the X's and O's of that sport and you took all you know about coaching, you would do just fine.
Yes, yes, and I
Yeah.
think, and this is where I do think yeah, taking the time I mean, nowadays it's easy, watch some videos, listen to some other coaches. I mean, the resources are there where yes, I could easily do a little bit of research, study up a little bit. I mean, I could do it just as easily as I've learned how to work a budget and
Right.
and
Yeah,
go
yeah,
through all this other stuff.
yeah. Nice. Is there anything I have not asked you about that you would like to share?
Oh god, we can talk forever.
I know. I know. Pick one thing.
It's funny. I was listening to another friend of mine does a podcast, and he in I was on the plane coming home from Florida. I was just listening to it, and they were discussing uh approaches to coaching like nowadays versus like when you and I were in college, and just how you have to coach a little bit differently, and like the pros and cons to that. And I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily something I want to get into, but I thought it was a really interesting turn that the conversation took, talking about, because they were talking about how they were coached, and these are guys that are our age, or that how they were coached versus how they have to coach now, and the differences there. And I think it's just, I think it's interesting. I think as we get older, you start to see a lot of things. I mean, you see the cycles, you see demographics change, you see just kids change, and everything, and just being able to adjust with it, I think is really important. One of the things I think that I have seen, and I mean, I've seen junior rowing just change so much for the better, and just more organization. Like there's a full on youth national championship. It's become just, again, more professionalized. It's become more focused, more professional. As the U.S. rowing has changed categories, you go do a lot of age group rowing now, and they're even talking about, there's under 17, under 16. There's also junior 16, junior 17, and it all just has to do with what your birth date is. But whatever they decide and they do for the race, you never have everybody happy. So there's always a contingent of people that are not going to be happy, or going to be maybe more vocal about it than others. But honestly, I just think, the quicker you as a coach can just adapt, adjust, and move on, the more successful you are. So I mean, that's what I've always kind of really worked on, is just being adaptable and being like, all right, you want to do it this way, fine, let's go. I'm going to do it the best that I can and adapt my program and put everyone in the best position to do as well as we can, and just keep moving on, instead of dwelling on like, I don't think this is a good idea, or I don't like this, I don't like that. It's just, just adapting and adjusting and moving on. I think that is a really important part of coaching as an athlete. I think you need to be able to do that. One thing that I always heard other coaches talk about, or they were coaching me, was the athletic adjustment. Make the athletic adjustment. Oh, it's raining. I'm not happy it's raining. It sucks, but let's not dwell on it, and let's race the best we can. Everyone is dealing with the same conditions out there. We're all lining up for the same race. So the crew that stays together and handles it the best is the crew that's going to do the best. And I think the same in coaching. Leadership stems from the top. And if you want your athletes to behave a certain way, then they need to see you behaving that way. And important parts of coaching that I'm sure, I don't know if you learned that in a classroom, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I wonder. I haven't ever had any real formal coach education training either. So, in all my various degrees, none of them were in coach education. It's kind of the sum of all of them, maybe. What's the name of the podcast that your friend does?
it's called Fast Friends. It's done by Dan Walsh. I coached with him for a year at Maritime. We were actually on the national team in the same time, but he had a much longer stint on the national team. And he talks to fast friends, a lot of
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wait, you got to explain it to me. I don't get it.
it's actually, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I'm good friends with Dan. So, and again, I privileged I got to coach with him for a year. I would have loved to coach with him for a little bit longer, but we remain, friends, and chit chat once in a while. Again, don't chit chat very often, but when we do, it's like an hour-long conversation. But a lot of philosophy and eight. He's a force to be reckoned with for sure. He's doing a lot of motivational talking, but he started this podcast and he talks with his friends. They just have conversations, and a lot of it they're talking about their rowing, their experience. I find it very interesting because there's some overlaps with some of the things they talk about. I'm like, I remember those times. I mean, I was
Yeah.
on the women's side of things, but it's really interesting. A lot of elite level athletes kind of stay in the field, so a lot of them are coaching. It's very interesting to hear just the full circle that everyone has come, and you can look back and appreciate the hard times that it was to be at that level. And then again, I think it all goes into, back to what I was talking about, how we learn to be a coach, and it's from being in this environment, and seeing all of it at the highest level, and then just learning bits and pieces that you want to repeat. It's just like I tell my athletes, three things that you want to do well and three things that you want to do that didn't go well and you want to do better. So same thing. Every coach I have had, I can be like, oh, I like that. I can do that better. I like that. I can do that better. Yeah.
That's like my middle name. I could do that better.
I can do that better. I mean, it goes to confidence too. I do think as a coach, like in my head, like no one's harder on me than me inside my head. But
100%.
but I mean,
Agree.
I certainly try to give off the confidence, and then I'm a fairly confident person. But, no matter what, inside my head, I'm always going to be questioning, like, should I do this differently? Could I have done that differently? What would I learn? And I mean, some things you can do differently, some things you can't. Sometimes I'm like, how did I find myself in the same position again? But yeah, always learning.
Awesome. We're going to stop here, but you can check out some bonus footage of Sharon and my adventures in college and beyond. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you're walking away with some new knowledge and something to reflect on. And if this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing on your favorite platform. Until next week, take care, and thanks for listening to Sport Coach Education.